Travel's supposed to be exciting, but for most of us, it's stressful, time consuming, and way more expensive than it should be. On World Travel Made Easy, I'll show you exactly how to flip that. Each week, you'll hear from different expert guests and get to hear real stories that are packed with different tools, credit card point strategies, and lessons that are going to save you time, cut cost, and make your trip smoother. Whether it's a solo adventure, a getaway with friends or family, or just travel that supports your business, this is going to be your shortcut to traveling smarter and most likely on points. Welcome back to another episode of World Travel Made Easy. On this week's episode, I'm excited to have Carissa. She is the director of marketing at Rove. She also has been in the points and miles space for over a decade. And she's also worked at the Points Guy. So she's bringing a lot of knowledge, and I'm very excited to learn from her and share what she's got going on. Hey, Carissa, how are you doing today?
What about you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining and would love to. I don't want to sell you short, so would love to hear a little bit more about, how'd you get into points and miles, a little bit more about your background and all that.
Yeah, so I have been into points and miles for quite a while. I originally started like a lot of people do. I was in the military. I was in the Air Force, and if anybody doesn't know, most major banks will waive annual fees for credit cards if you are an active duty member of the military. And so I had originally joined the Air Force to travel, and they sent me all the way to Augusta, Georgia for 5 years. And so I got a little bit shafted. And when I realized I could use points to kind of fund my travel, and then I realized also those points would cost me nothing in annual fees, I was like immediately like, wow. I signed up for every single premium credit card that there was. Amex Platinum, Chase Sapphire Reserve debuted while I was still in. Like I went ham. And so that's how I got started. And once I got out of the Air Force, I had already sort of started writing about it on a personal blog. Um, I spent a year, I think, yeah, a year just traveling around the world after the Air Force, being nomad-ish. Um, and from my personal blog, I went to a boarding area blog and then to the Points Guy. I was there for about a year and then I went freelance, writing for all sorts of publications and editing, doing sort of social media, NerdWallet, Upgraded Points, Award Wallet, USA Today, Business Insider, everybody. And then I joined Rove in July, and I have to tell you, I joined Rove. I cold emailed them because I saw the platform and I saw what it was doing, and I really liked it. And I saw they didn't have a lot of exposure yet, so I jumped in and I said, "Hey, can you please hire me?" And it worked. It's been working out really well so far. So good
That's
stuff.
awesome. Yeah, no, what's cool is my cousin is also in the Air Force, and I know he travels a lot, and I just called him because wanted I know he was traveling a lot overseas and just wanted to make sure if he had any questions, if I could help in any way. And he's like, "Oh, I got all these Amex points, and also they waive all the annual fees." And I didn't know that because I'm not active military, but I have a lot of so now I work with some veterans and so I don't think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, so if you aren't active and say you were to go and apply, you wouldn't get that annual fee waived, it's not a huge deal, but for someone who's just coming out of school, you're like, oh, cool, I get a couple $1,000 if I'm getting multiple premium cards for, free.
Like you do. Like, I mean, when you think about the like the statement credits that you can get with all of those cards, like
Hmm.
the Bonvoy Brilliant, which is what, $30 a month in restaurants, and then like the free night certificate and et cetera, et cetera. You can get a lot of free rewards with that. I will say it does take the card issuers, it can take the card issuers a couple of years to realize that you're not in anymore. But then eventually they will come around and they'll start charging you. So yeah,
That's
but
just
it's a
my
good.
favorite. That's my favorite part about being a host is you get to learn a little bit about the workarounds from people who have done it, and because that's what people come to me to ask about. Okay, how do I use this? Are there any tips or tricks? And I'm like, that's exactly why I bring experts like Carissa on the podcast because they've done it. They found some of the fun ways that you can maximize and optimize.
Yeah, it's good stuff, honestly. I mean, that's really what points and miles are about, right? Like that's
Hmm.
sort of, I mean, I know the typical nomenclature is to call it gaming, and yeah, it is kind of a game, you know. I think of it more like a puzzle, you know,
Hmm.
like I'm in where I want to go or where I want to stay or what I want to do, or if I want free stuff, and I try to fit it in so that I can get like the best sort of picture possible when I'm booking stuff or when I'm doing things.
I love
So,
that. No, that's a great analogy, and it's so true. I want to get into. I know this episode we're going to be diving into the Maldives. You've been multiple times, and I know you're going again here in a couple months, here in October. So would love to just get in to it because I've never been, and just other than the amazing pictures that are on Instagram, right? Like what continues to keep drawing you back to going there?
I'll say this. I first went to the Maldives in 2018. I think I've been 5 times, I think. Um, and when I first went in 2018, I hadn't been to a lot of high-end luxury resorts or sort of those destinations. I'd been to Mexico, but I was a less seasoned award traveler at that point. I was still flying economy with my points, which no shade, but these days I would love if I could always fly business.
Hmm.
So it was very impactful for me as a first luxury destination, but also I keep coming back because I've been a million other places now, and there's just, well, one, it never fails to feel special. Um, like when it's a highly curated experience. You're walking along the sand that they've raked to make free of, any sort of debris. It's like you're walking along the sand barefoot and the sun is just like coming down over the waves and there's a scent in the air, just like it feels magical and that never stops. And no matter how many times I go, and I'm sure that anybody who goes there kind of feels the same way. I'll also say that the Maldives has the best snorkeling I've ever seen. I'm not a scuba diver. I'm not huge into, it's a bit too far down for me.
Yeah.
But I have been
Hey,
snorkeling
I
all
wanted to take a quick break to say thank you so much for tuning into the show. The only way the show grows is through listeners like you helping us share it. So if you're enjoying the show, it'd mean the world to me if you hit that 5-star rating, shared it with a friend or family member who's ready to travel more, save money, or just needs a little bit more inspiration and that nudge. And if you're posting about it on Instagram, go ahead and tag Itinerary Boss, and we'll make sure to reshare it and shout you out for giving us a shout out. Thanks so much for the support. It truly means a lot. And now back with the
I have been
show.
snorkeling all over, and to date, I still think that, the different islands in the Maldives, if they've got the right reefs, they have the best snorkeling, like turtles and octopuses and sharks and so many fish. You just like I like was swimming like with a school of fish, like just
That's
you know what I
cool.
mean? Like, it's really cool, and I don't see that anywhere else.
Y-
So yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm not a huge scuba diver either. I did it once when we were in Tulum and went up to Playa del Carmen. I was just, yeah, I think getting in the pool and trialing it at first, I'm just like, all right, this is weird. Then we did, and I liked it a little bit, but I'm just like, all right, it was that kind of, I did it, and I don't know if I could. And but for other people, some people love it. But I think the snorkeling piece, that's cool because you get to experience it, and it's just something that's different.
Yeah, I mean, and in the Maldives, and I'm sure like a lot of other places, but in the Maldives, those, the reefs, they're generally quite whole and they're so close. Depending on when you go out, like I've had times where I was like splayed out on the water, sucking it in to make sure I didn't accidentally touch a piece of coral or something, which is like
Yeah.
not, but pretty cool. Like I had, clear vision, like, yeah, there's a lot to see there. So.
Very cool. So when you get to the island, because all the, images you see online, it looks like, okay, you get there and you're just in these amazing overwater villas. But then how do you, are you then scuba diving from or just snorkeling from your actual overwater villa or like transportation logistics? Like how are you getting around and all that stuff with tours?
Yeah, so every time I've been, it's been in an overwater villa. And I will say that's actually one reason I keep coming back as well. I would say that I specifically wouldn't want to go if I had to stay in a not overwater villa, because I really like that you can just dive right in from your back patio, or your back deck. And I'm not a huge fan of sand, so the fact that I come out of the ocean onto the wood, I know this is a silly thing to say for like a tropical destination, but not getting sandy anytime,
Yep.
my heart in it, everything's fine. I'm just right in the water and then right out. So, and there are a multitude. Like it's not like one property has overwater villas, right? That's kind of their iconic. They're very easy to find, whether you're booking with points and miles or cash, like they're all over the Maldives. So yeah, you can just go right in.
Nice, nice. Okay, that's helpful to know. What about just favorite properties that you've stayed at or that others have stayed at that people should know about?
Um, So I tend to go back and forth on this just in terms of like I'm sort of property agnostic, sort of. I'm more price sensitive or points price sensitive. I'll say this. The Waldorf Astoria Maldives I went to about a year and a half ago for my birthday, and it was hands down the best, absolute best Maldives resort that I've been to. It's, the room that you get is 2,300 square feet. And it's technically not a true overwater villa, but your back deck is overwater. So you end up being able to go in the water from your deck anyway. And you have like a pretty big pool to yourself and like a dining set and a day bed and like other chairs. And like it's like basically large enough for 10 people to stay, but it's just, a couple of people. So I would say that one's probably the best. It's also strangely massive. The hotel, like, it has 9 restaurants, whereas
Oh,
in a
wow.
typical, yeah, it's weird. I mean, they cater there's not enough rooms really to justify that, but they cater to very high net worth people who don't want to eat in the same restaurant every day.
Hmm.
They have 9 restaurants, and so that's my favorite property. I have tried to go back. I have a booking that I'm not able to make for later this year. Given the choice, that's where I would go. Otherwise, I tend to just kind of pick sort of agnostically. I already said that, but in terms of where I can go based on how cheap it is or how affordable it is. Like the Park Hyatt Maldives is, I think, 20 to 35,000 points a night, 25 to 35,000 points a night from Hyatt. And that's those transfer over from Chase at a 1-to-1 ratio, which makes it basically the most affordable property.
Yeah.
Right? It's really, really affordable. The only rub with that is, of course, that you get a beach villa instead of an overwater. Does it lead directly to the ocean? Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just the teeniest bit of snobbery. Like, just um, there's also the Le Méridien Maldives, which has increased in price since it opened in the last few years. Actually, I have a couple of friends who are staying there right now. But as far as like Maldives properties go, it's a Marriott and it's surprisingly affordable. It can go between 35,000 to 60-ish thousand Marriott points a night. And that's not bad. That's actually, especially since Marriott has changed their pricing to be more dynamic, um, the fact that you can still get it at a relatively affordable rate, that's good. Um, IHG has properties, they even have a Holiday Inn where you can do rooms. So if you're really looking to do like Maldives on a budget, that's an option. My first ever stay was the Conrad Maldives Ringali Island, which is one of the ones that has an underwater restaurant.
Oh, sweet.
That one is really nice. That one is nice because you book into with points a true overwater villa. And those overwater villas come with like a little jetted hot tub thing, and it's adults only. So I don't have any kids, so that's a big plus for me that you can just be on a separate island, adults only. So those are probably my favorite like points-ish properties. I will also say this. I have been back, so many times, and for the last few times, I have been making use of Travelzoo vouchers or Luxury Escapes vouchers because I find that the total out-of-pocket price ends up being cheaper because food in the Maldives is quite expensive. It's all imported, right? And alcohol is expensive because it's a Muslim country and technically you're only allowed to drink in the resorts, so they can just charge you whatever they want.
Yeah.
Like the sky's the limit, honestly. So, for example, I went to the Waldorf Astoria Maldives, and to be fair, I went ham. Okay, I went ham on this day. But for 7 nights for 2 people, including the transfers, it was $10,000 in food, drinks, and transfers. 10 grand. Um, I could have probably gotten away with like 7 grand out of pocket.
Yeah.
But like a Travelzoo voucher, which is what I'm doing in October, we paid 2,000 for 5 nights in an overwater villa, all inclusive.
Wow.
Um, so you are paying money,
Yeah.
but the trade-off, like, and there are people who are willing to bring sandwiches to the Maldives or protein bars to the Maldives, and so eliminate sort of their out-of-pocket costs were they to stay at the Waldorf. But I like feeling fancy at the restaurants, and so I kind of tend to use those vouchers. I will also say this, not to get too promotional about Rove. But if you take a look at Rove's searches for hotels, I have found some like really insanely cheap deals. For example, you can, I have an example pulled up already. You can get like an overwater villa all inclusive for 3 nights, and it'll cost you 37,000 Rove miles for all 3 nights.
Wow. Yeah.
It's because they pass along the commission in the form of value, and some of those hotels, like it's based on demand and stuff, but some of those hotels are willing to give a much higher commission, which means that your cent per point redemption value is insane.
Yeah.
Or you could pay for 3 nights, earn enough miles, and then get 3 more nights free. So that's another option. And those can be chain hotels, but more often than not, they'll be like boutique sort of options, but you're still using miles to sort of
Yeah.
pay. Yeah.
Very cool. No, that's super helpful because you've been so many times. So it's like, because a lot of the times it's you can travel places, you can use points, but you're also having to pay for food. So you have to, if you do have points, you have to think. I always tell people, like, okay, yes, when you get there, you're covered from a lot of times your hotel, your flight, you may have some taxes and fees. But other than that, like, then you're just worried about food and tours. So, like, what is your budget, right? If you're going to Portugal, it might be a little bit different because it's a lot more affordable. But if you want to go to the Maldives and have that experience, understanding that it is expensive, that's a great tip because, yeah, you still could use those points to fly there, right? And you could splurge on your flight getting there. Yeah, exactly. So that's the strategy that I think of. And I know we're going to do a separate deep dive into Rove because that's a new tool that a lot of people are excited about. I've used a little bit and I'm excited to learn a little bit more about. So yeah, no, those strategies are very helpful. What about, are there any just other strategies? I know there's a place to stay, but are there any like free night award certificates, any point strategies with cards, anything like that that you've used or other people use?
Yeah, so I would say hands down the absolute best card to have for the Maldives is the Hilton Honors American Express Aspire card. And there's a couple of reasons for that. So the first reason is that the card, I think it charges 450 a year, maybe 550. It comes with an uncapped annual free night certificate, which is valid at even hotels like the Waldorf Astoria Maldives. So what you can do is you can book your regular stay using your points and then tack on an extra night. To be able to have, an extra night free. And that, of course, like the Waldorf Astoria Maldives is $2,500 a night. You're paying one annual fee of, I think, 450, and then, you're obviously getting your value out of it. It also gives you elite status, Diamond, which is Hilton's top tier elite status. You already get breakfast free, I think, at the Waldorf, but not the Conrad. So that would include, like, that would grant you, $80 per person per day in free breakfast. Champagne, by the way, breakfast, which is important to note. So the Hilton Aspire card is absolutely the best one. The Marriott Bond by Brilliant, sort of similarly, gives you platinum status, which is high enough to get you free breakfast, and it offers an 85,000 point per night free night certificate, which isn't enough for like their most expensive hotels, but it is enough for like the Le Méridien Maldives to get you an extra night free there. Both Hilton and Marriott also offer a program where you can get your fifth night free on award stays. Um, with Hilton, you have to be a silver member at least, but that's really easy to do. You can get their free credit card and it gives you that. Or if you have like an Amex Platinum, Amex Business Platinum, a Founder's Card, those all give you Hilton Gold status just as a card holder. Marriott, you don't need any status at all to get the fifth night free. So you can combine, for example, you'll stay for 5 nights, you'll be charged for 4 nights worth of points, and then you can use your free night certificate and be able to stay 6 nights for the price of four. So it's pretty good.
That's awesome. Yeah, but those are strategies that a lot of times people, when they're first getting into this, oh, the annual fee. Like, I don't like that. That's the first thing that someone looks at is, can I justify the annual fee? And you said on the front end, well, one, you didn't have the annual fee, but if you did, you thought through, okay, here's all of the different credits that I get. Unfortunately, now I know they're starting to do like a coupon book where, you're having to do a lot of different mental gymnastics. And if you're not like you, myself, and other people who are like, okay, I know this, I know when I need to use it, but even that can be exhausting. So it's like, if there are specific things, that's what I always tell people is if there are specific places or specific things that you want to do, like looking at how that can offset the annual fee is a great thing. So if you want, right, priority pass, if you want Centurion Lounge, or you want that free night, like what you just said, you're getting 5 times your annual fee just off if you were to stay at that place. There's plenty of other nice Hilton hotels and the $80 breakfast, right, for those amount of people. Like, it just starts to, it's very easy to justify that. And the points that you're earning and then transferring it, like, that's, even if you had none of that, if you earn those points and transfer them, you're still going to get, it's going to outweigh the cost. So that's one of the biggest things that people struggle with when they're first getting into this for sure.
Absolutely. I think, and also I think it's important to note that, although card issuers don't encourage it, you don't have to keep a card for
Hmm.
more than a year. Once you have extracted sort of the benefits that you want and need out of it, you can choose to keep it for 1 full year, 2 full years, and then just decide, no, thank you, the annual fee isn't serving me anymore. And you can close it, you know? And I think a lot of people sort of forget that when they get hung up about the annual fees. So.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Or you can downgrade it if you get a higher one and you want to go to a lower tier one. Like there's a bunch of different strategies, but I think it's getting over that initial hump of, okay, this is the value that I'm going to derive from this actual card. What are some of the best airlines when you get over there? Because I think that's what people want to go, but they're like, they look at the map and they just get overwhelmed. They're like, yeah, I don't know how that's going to happen. That sounds like a long flight. Like, what are some of the best flights as well as like business class award availability?
So my top tip, if you want to go to the Maldives and you want to fly business class, is to not go to the Maldives in business class. And that is because airlines know that everybody wants to go to the Maldives in business class. So what they do is they take away not all, most award availability from whatever nearest airport to the Maldives. So what happens is you end up looking for a flight from New York to the Maldives, and it's like, oh, it's only an economy, or it's 300,000 miles in business. Um, but if you decide to look from New York to Dubai, it ends up being an appropriate amount, something like 60,000, 70,000 miles. And then you can pay either separately, and it can be cheaper separately for an economy leg using your miles, or I tend to buy cheap economy class tickets because it's like a 4.5 hour flight. So basically
Yeah.
transcon. Um, and I just do it that way. And that way guarantees that on the really long leg, because I'm from the West Coast, I'm able to enjoy business class to get all the way over there. And then whatever, if I have to slum it for 4 hours, I'll slum it and it'll cost me $200.
Yeah.
Like that's worth it for me. That is honestly my top tip. And so, in terms of where you should be going, if you're looking for flights to the Maldives, where you're positioning to before you buy your cheap cash flight, what's really nice is that a lot of places in Europe offer daily flights, maybe multiple times a day flights to the Maldives. That's a bit of a longer sort of leg. But you can get, for example, Paris. You can fly to Paris in business, London, Frankfurt, Istanbul. Those ones all have direct flights to the Maldives that you can book. I tend to go for the Middle East, sort of. So I'm like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Doha because I can do like to Doha in Q suites with
Hmm.
AA for 70,000 miles, which is like,
Yeah.
bedtime in a double bed and then pay, a couple $100 for my flight to the Maldives. You can also, and this is something that I know is pretty popular, but I've never done, if you want to fly it to Sri Lanka, which I've never been to Colombo, there is decent award availability to get there, and then it's only a 2 hour flight to the Maldives from there.
Nice.
So
Okay. Yeah, that makes it easy. And I think the biggest thing is just understanding that because a lot of times people that I talk to are like, oh, points don't work. And it's like, okay, well, are you searching on a Friday, leaving and coming home on a Sunday? And are you searching out of your home airport to the Mal from Charlotte for us to the Maldives? Like, yeah, that's going to be tough. You do have to, and it is different, right? If you do have a family, if you do have kids in school, most likely you're probably not going, but if you're just trying to be strategic, even taking one, positioning flight can change award availability significantly. And you're also, if there aren't direct flights, yeah, it might take a little longer, but you're getting to, like you said, Q suites. We flew that for our honeymoon recently, and it's like, yeah, you get to sleep and it's amazing. And you get to eat. You're traveling for a while, but once you get there, the lounge is amazing. Like you get the full experience where you really don't feel like you are actually like on a flight, honestly.
makes your vacation start when your flight starts rather than being forced to endure, economy class for what will be a long flight, even from anywhere in the United States. It's going to be minimum probably 10 to 12 hours if you got the best, most direct flight, 10 to 12 hours in one direction. And that's a pretty miserable experience in economy. So if it's easier to tolerate some shenanigans like switching your dates or changing your airports. so that you can do business class rather than having to sort of
Yeah.
deal with that far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 100%. Is there any favorite memory that you have or travel story?
Uh, so I kind of alluded to this earlier when I was talking about my very first time being there. So that was in 2018, and I had been to a few places, but nothing that even compared, right? And I will never forget, this was the Conrad Maldives before they renovated and had hot tubs. So you used to get your own little private pool um, in your overwater villa. And I was just sitting in the pool with my arms like on the infinity edge, looking out. I had a sunset facing villa. And the way that they build the rooms is that you have privacy dividers, massive privacy dividers, that extend all the way out into the ocean. So it feels very isolated. It feels like you're the only person in the world. And just in my pool, watching the sunset, hearing the ocean and the sounds of the water falling over the edge. And I just thought, like, oh my God, like, where am I? Like, what am I doing? And and I get that same way every single time. Honestly, every single time I go back, I take a moment to really appreciate where I am, which kind of, I get a little bit because I travel so much, I get a little bit fatigued, but the Maldives is just like, it always evokes that sense of wonder. So that was the first time, I went there and it was so impactful.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that and excited that you're able to come on the show, share some of your knowledge just from going so many times, tips and tricks. And where can our listeners find you if they want to just follow your travels, anything you got going on social media?
So I have a few different places. So if you're talking about me independently, I have just plane points, and then it's Plane, airplane, just plane points. Those are my socials on Instagram and stuff. If you want to look me up on Facebook, I am an admin for all of Rove's stuff. We have the Rove Miles Insiders, which is our Facebook group that I make videos on and things like that. So you can really just find me anywhere. And I still do some freelance writing on the side, so if you just Google my name, you'll find that too. So all over the internet.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, no, I appreciate you coming on. I know we're doing a two-part podcast recording, so one of them will be Rove, a Rove deep dive. But again, really appreciate you coming on. Listeners, if this is your first time, make sure you give us a follow or subscribe. That way you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. Make sure you share it with a family or friend who's always dreamed about going to the Maldives or just wants to travel more on points. And make sure you give us a 5-star review if you think it deserves it. I definitely think Carissa does, and really appreciate everyone tuning in. We will see you next week.